In the quiet border town of San Fernando, California, a shocking mystery gripped the community 5 years ago, when a devoted uncle and his teenage nephew vanished without a trace. Their last known whereabouts were just south of the international border, a journey that should have taken mere hours. Instead, it became a haunting tale of unanswered questions and shattered dreams. As days turned into weeks, then months and years, hope faded for the families left behind. Yet, just when it seemed the case would slip into the shadows of forgotten history, a startling discovery emerged that would reignite the search for the truth. Hidden inside a truck seat, an unexpected find would serve as a beacon of hope for the family still mourning their loss. This object, long overlooked, would become the catalyst in unraveling a web of secrets surrounding the disappearances. The lives of those affected were forever changed as the truth began to surface, revealing the darkness that had cloaked this case for too long. Among those yearning for answers was Laura, the niece of the missing uncle. For 5 agonizing years, Laura had grappled with grief, clinging to the memories of her beloved uncle and her playful cousin. With each passing year, the pain deepened, overshadowed by questions that haunted her nights. What happened to them? Were they safe? Would she ever know the truth? The authorities had long since concluded their investigation, deeming the case too cold to pursue further. They had moved on, but not Laura. She became determined to uncover the truth, driven by love and loss. The shadows of uncertainty loomed large, yet she held on to hope, believing that answers were out there, waiting to be found. It wasn't until a local mechanic working on a routine repair stumbled upon the hidden compartment in the truck seat that everything changed. The discovery of a crumpled photograph inside, one that appeared to show the uncle and nephew together in happier times, sent shockwaves through the community. This was not just a piece of fabric. It was a lifeline to the past, a connection to those who had vanished. But as Laura would soon learn, the journey to uncover the truth would be fraught with challenges. With the authorities dismissive of any new leads, she found herself standing at a crossroads. Should she trust the system that had failed her family? Or would she take matters into her own hands? The answers she sought were buried beneath layers of deception, and the path ahead was shrouded in mystery. As Laura began to dig deeper, she faced skepticism not only from the police but also from those around her. Friends and family, worried for her safety, cautioned her against pursuing a case long thought to be closed. They couldn't understand the fire that burned within her, the relentless need to bring her loved ones back to the forefront of the conversation. "What if they are still out there?" she would ask, her voice steady, yet filled with emotion. "What if they need us to find them?" The whispers of conspiracy began to echo in her mind as she uncovered unsettling connections between the people involved in the case. The seemingly innocent truck that had been the last known vehicle of her uncle and nephew held secrets of its own. Who had owned it before? What stories lay hidden in the fabric of that seat? With each thread unraveled, Laura began to realize that the truth behind her uncle and nephew's disappearance was far more complex than anyone could have anticipated. As she chased down leads piecing together the fragmented timeline of their last known movements, Laura found herself entangled in a world she never expected to enter. A hidden life revealed itself, one that suggested her uncle might have been involved in something much more dangerous than she ever imagined. It was a web of deceit and danger, where innocence had been stripped away, and the stakes were higher than anyone could have foreseen. With every new piece of evidence, the picture grew clearer yet murkier, leading Laura to question everything she thought she knew about her uncle. Could he have been living a double life? Was there something he hadn't shared with his family, a secret that might explain why he and her cousin disappeared so suddenly? As she delved deeper, the realization dawned on her that sometimes the truth can be more terrifying than the unknown. And so, the search for answers intensified. The weight of the past bore heavily on Laura's shoulders, but her determination only grew stronger. She was no longer just a grieving niece. She had transformed into a warrior for truth. The journey ahead would demand courage and resilience, but she was ready to confront the dark realities that lay ahead, and nothing would stop her from seeking justice for her uncle and cousin. As we embark on this unsettling journey alongside Laura, We will uncover the layers of this chilling case that has haunted a family for far too long. With each revelation, we will peel back the facade of normalcy, exposing the darkness that can lurk just beneath the surface. The truth is waiting to be uncovered, and with it, the possibility of closure for a family that has endured unimaginable pain. Join us as we take the first steps into this mystery, where every detail may hold the key to a case that has remained unsolved for years. Together, we will explore the depths of betrayal, the bonds of family, and the relentless pursuit of justice for those who have vanished without a trace. The story is just beginning, and the secrets hidden within the shadows are about to emerge. Laura meticulously examined the newly discovered item, a small, weathered photograph tucked deep within the creases of the truck seat. It depicted her uncle and cousin smiling, their faces illuminated by the sun, blissfully unaware of the fate that awaited them. The joy of that moment felt like a cruel mockery now, a stark contrast to the darkness that had engulfed her life since their disappearance. With a renewed sense of purpose, Laura began her investigation in earnest. She reached out to the authorities, armed with the photograph and the questions that had haunted her for years. However, the initial response was disheartening. The detective assigned to the case had long since deemed it cold. "We've moved on, Laura," he said, his voice laced with impatience. "There's not much more we can do." But Laura was undeterred. She decided to take matters into her own hands. Using social media, she launched a campaign to gather information from anyone who might have known her uncle and cousin, particularly in the days leading up to their disappearance. As messages began to pour in, she stumbled upon a name that sent chills down her spine, a man known for his dubious connections along the border. She quickly discovered that this man had a history of involvement in smuggling operations, a figure who thrived in the shadows. Laura felt a knot tighten in her stomach. This was no ordinary lead. It was a potential link to a world far darker than she had anticipated, a world that could explain the sudden vanishing of her loved ones. Determined to uncover the truth, Laura pressed on. She arranged to meet with several individuals who had crossed paths with this man. Each conversation revealed a web of secrets, whispers of illicit dealings, and an unsettling sense of danger that hung in the air. The closer she got to the truth, the more the stakes seemed to rise. Late one evening, she received an anonymous tip suggesting that a shipment was scheduled to pass through a remote area near the border, a shipment linked to the man she was investigating. Heart racing, Laura decided to follow the lead herself, determined to find out more about this dark underworld that seemed to have swallowed her uncle and cousin whole. As she approached the meeting point, shadows flickered across her path, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The weight of the photograph she kept in her pocket felt heavier than ever, as if it were a silent witness urging her to continue, to press forward into the unknown. But just as she was about to confront the situation head-on, a figure emerged from the darkness, a man she recognized from the photographs. The air thickened with tension, and in that moment Laura realized that she was standing on the precipice of a revelation that could either bring the answers she sought or plunge her deeper into peril. What she would uncover next was a twisted truth, one that would shake the very foundations of her understanding and force her to confront a reality darker than she could have ever imagined. The man stepped into the dim light, his features obscured by the shadows. Laura felt her pulse quicken as recognition washed over her. This was the man who had been seen with her uncle and cousin on the last day they were known to be alive. As she steadied her breath, she recalled every detail from the photographs, every interaction captured in the fragments of a life that had vanished. "Laura," he said, a sly smile creeping onto his face. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Where are they?" she demanded, her voice a mixture of anger and desperation. "What do you know about my uncle and cousin?" His smile faded as he studied her, weighing her resolve. "You should be careful asking questions like that. You might not like the answers." With her heart pounding, Laura felt a surge of determination. She had come too far to back down now. "I deserve to know. You owe me that much." For a brief moment, silence hung between them, heavy with unsaid truths. Then, he leaned closer, lowering his voice. They got into something they couldn't handle. "It's not what you think. You don't want to dig deeper." Laura's mind raced. What could possibly be darker than the fear that consumed her since their disappearance? What did they get into? She pressed, knowing that this was a crucial moment. Before he could reply, a sudden noise shattered the tension. A vehicle engine revving in the distance. The man's eyes darted nervously. You need to leave. Now. Laura hesitated, torn between the urge to uncover more and the gnawing instinct to escape. Then, as if sensing her indecision, he took a step back into the shadows. Forget this meeting. Forget me. You're not ready for the truth. Without warning, he turned and disappeared into the darkness, leaving her breathless and more confused than ever. She stood there, grappling with his words, her mind racing with possibilities. What could be so dangerous that he would rather walk away than reveal it? As she turned to leave, she noticed something glinting in the dirt where he had stood. A small metal object, half buried. Kneeling down, she picked it up, revealing a silver locket. The clasp was open, and inside a faded photograph of her uncle and cousin smiled back at her. But it was the inscription on the back that sent a chill down her spine. Always with you, no matter the distance. With newfound urgency, Laura returned to her car, her thoughts swirling. She had to get this locket analyzed to find out if it could lead her closer to the truth. But as she drove away from the meeting point, the weight of her uncle's and cousin's fate hung heavier than ever. What had they been involved in? And who was the man she had just confronted? In the days that followed, Laura delved deeper into her investigation, seeking out anyone who might help her piece together this disturbing puzzle. But with every question she asked, she was met with veiled warnings and disapproving glances, as if the very act of seeking answers had marked her as a target. Still, she pressed on, driven by the locket's promise and the haunting memories of her uncle and cousin. Each lead seemed to pull her deeper into a world where trust was a luxury, and danger lurked around every corner. And just as she began to piece together the fragmented clues, she stumbled upon a name that would turn her investigation on its head, a name that would connect the dots of a hidden life her uncle had led, one that intertwined with a web of crime and betrayal. As she prepared for the next step, Laura felt the shadows closing in, the weight of the past pressing down as the truth edged closer. She was on the verge of unearthing a dark conspiracy that had ensnared not only her family but others as well. With every step forward, the stakes rose higher, and she knew that confronting the truth would come at a price. But she was ready. Ready to face whatever lay ahead, ready to confront the darkness that had claimed her family, and ready to uncover the truth, no matter the consequences. As Laura delved deeper into her uncle's hidden life, the name she had uncovered echoed ominously in her mind. It belonged to a figure known only as El Jefe, a shadowy character rumored to be the kingpin of a smuggling operation that had thrived along the border. The more she learned, the more unsettling the connections became. Her uncle, a man she had always regarded as gentle and kind, had been entangled in a world of danger that she had never imagined. With determination fueling her, Laura sought out anyone who might have known more about El Jefe and his network. The local authorities, however, dismissed her inquiries, labeling them as mere fantasies of a grieving niece. They had moved on. Her family was just another cold case in a long list of unsolved mysteries. This dismissiveness only fueled her resolve. She turned to the underground community, where whispers carried weight and secrets were currency. Days turned into weeks as she navigated this treacherous landscape, piecing together the fragments of her uncle's past. A chance encounter with a former associate of El Jefe revealed chilling insights. He spoke in hushed tones of a truck, one that had been used to transport more than just goods across the border. The very truck that had disappeared alongside her uncle and cousin 5 years ago. Laura's heart raced as she pressed him for details. The man hesitated, his eyes darting around as if expecting someone to overhear their conversation. He warned her that digging too deep could attract unwanted attention. But she couldn't turn back now. She needed to know the truth. Armed with this new information, she began to trace the truck's route, discovering a network of warehouses where contraband was traded. Each lead brought her closer to the heart of the operation, but it also put her in perilous situations, as she became entangled with people who would rather keep their secrets buried. Despite the danger, Laura's resolve only strengthened. She uncovered a chilling pattern. Several families had vanished under similar circumstances, their loved ones swallowed by the dark underbelly of smuggling and deceit. The more she learned, the clearer it became that El Jefe was not just a criminal. He was a puppet master, pulling strings that ensnared countless lives, including her uncle and cousin. As she pieced together the layers of this complex conspiracy, she received a text late one night from an unknown number. It simply read, "You're getting too close." The message sent a chill down her spine. Laura realized she was treading on dangerous ground, and with each passing day, the threat loomed larger. Determined to confront the truth head-on, she set up a meeting with the informant, hoping to gain critical information about El Jefe's operation and her uncle's fate. But as she arrived at the designated location, she felt an unsettling presence watching her. The shadows deepened, and Laura sensed that the walls were closing in. Her heart pounded as she approached the dimly lit alley, uncertainty gnawing at her. With every step, she felt the weight of her uncle's locket around her neck, a reminder of her promise to find him. As she prepared for the confrontation, she steeled herself for what lay ahead. The truth was within reach, but it was becoming increasingly clear that uncovering it would lead her to face more than just the pain of loss. It would force her into a reckoning with the very forces that had taken her family away. In that moment, as the darkness loomed ever closer, Laura understood that this was more than a search for answers. It was a fight for justice, a fight for her family, and a fight for her own survival. The next turn in her journey could change everything, and she was prepared to confront whatever awaited her in the shadows. As Laura stepped deeper into the shadows of the alley, the air thickened with tension. She could hear the echo of her own footsteps, a reminder of how far she had come and the dangers that lay ahead. The informant, a man known only as Diego, was said to have direct ties to the world her uncle had vanished into. But as she approached the meeting point, a figure emerged from the darkness, a silhouette that sent chills down her spine. Diego's face was obscured by the brim of his hat, but his voice was low and gravelly. "You shouldn't be here, Chica. They're watching you." Laura's heart raced as she tried to steady her breathing. "I need to know what happened to my uncle," she insisted, desperation creeping into her tone. Diego glanced around, paranoia etched in his features. "You think you want the truth? The truth can get you killed. Your uncle was involved in things, dangerous things." With those words, the gravity of her uncle's life hit her like a cold wave. He hadn't just vanished. He had been part of a web of crime and deceit that extended far beyond what she could imagine. "What do you mean?" she pressed, urgency pushing her forward. El Jefe wasn't just a drug lord. He was involved in a network that extended to law enforcement, politicians, even families, Diego revealed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Your uncle was trying to expose them. That's why he disappeared." As the pieces began to fall into place, a chill ran down her spine. This wasn't just a simple case of a man gone missing. It was a dark conspiracy that threatened to engulf anyone who dared to uncover it. "Why didn't anyone do anything?" Laura asked, feeling the weight of betrayal loom over her. "Because sometimes, the people you trust are the ones you should fear the most," Diego warned, his eyes darting nervously. "Your uncle was close to revealing everything. They couldn't let that happen." The realization struck Laura with an unsettling force. The authorities had not only ignored her uncle's disappearance, but they may have also been complicit in it. The very people sworn to protect their community could be the ones hiding the truth. "What can I do?" she asked, her voice trembling but resolute. "Gather evidence, talk to others who knew him, but be careful. Trust no one," Diego cautioned, stepping back into the shadows. "If they find out you're digging, you'll be next." As she watched him disappear, a mix of fear and determination surged within her. Laura understood now that her quest for answers had become a dangerous game. The stakes were higher than she ever anticipated, and the path ahead was fraught with peril. But she couldn't turn back. The memory of her uncle, the promise she made, and the haunting question of his fate propelled her forward. The deeper she dug, the more she realized that the truth was a double-edged sword. Would it bring her justice, or would it cut her down in the process? Every second counted as she prepared to confront the shadows of her uncle's life. and the dark secrets that lurked within. Little did she know, the truth would not only reveal her uncle's fate, but would also unearth a betrayal from within her own family, a twist that would change everything she thought she knew. The investigation had reached a turning point, and with newfound determination, Laura vowed to uncover the intricate threads of deception that bound her uncle's disappearance to a much larger, sinister plot. With renewed focus, Laura began to piece together the fragments of her uncle's life. She delved into his past, sifting through old photographs, messages, and documents that had once held little significance, but now pulsated with potential clues. Each item she uncovered felt like a whisper from the past, urging her to dig deeper. She soon discovered that her uncle had been involved with a group of individuals at the border, people known for their shady dealings. It was a community marked by fear and silence where loyalty was rewarded, but betrayal could lead to dire consequences. Laura's heart raced as she realized that her uncle had been more than just a victim. He had been entangled in a dangerous web of smuggling and criminal enterprise. Driven by the urgency of her quest, she reached out to individuals who had known her uncle, risking her safety to unearth the truth. Many were reluctant to speak, their eyes darting nervously as they recalled the dark days surrounding his disappearance. Some whispered his name with reverence, others with fear. But one thing was clear. Her uncle had been hiding more than anyone had known. Then came the breakthrough. While searching through a local library's archives, she stumbled upon a police report, buried under layers of bureaucratic indifference. The report detailed a series of border crossings linked to her uncle's name, but it also mentioned an encounter with a known criminal, a figure named Marco Vasquez, who had a reputation that sent chills through the community. Laura's pulse quickened. Marco was not just a name, he was a ghost of the past, someone who had connections that ran deep into the underbelly of the border trade. Determined to find out more, she conducted an online search, discovering a network of social media profiles and forums where individuals discussed the very activities her uncle had been involved in. As she delved deeper, she received an unsettling message, a warning from an anonymous account. "Stop digging. You're in over your head." It sent shivers down her spine, but it only fueled her resolve. She had to confront Marco, to understand the role he played in her uncle's life and disappearance. The moment of confrontation loomed closer, but Laura knew she had to tread carefully. The stakes were rising, and with every revelation, the shadows grew darker. Who could she trust? Who would stand in her way? The risk of uncovering the truth about her uncle's life became increasingly tangible, and as she gathered her courage to face the demons of the past, she prepared herself for the possibility that the answers she sought could lead her to a betrayal closer to home than she ever imagined. Laura's heart raced as she steeled herself for what lay ahead, understanding that the truth could shatter her world. Yet it was the only path toward justice for her uncle. With each passing day, she felt the weight of those lost years pressing down upon her, propelling her forward into the unknown, where the line between friend and foe would soon become perilously blurred. As Laura approached Marco's home, the familiar tension filled her chest, a stark reminder of the uncertainty that enveloped her quest for truth. She knocked on the door, her heartbeat echoing in her ears, each second feeling like a lifetime. When Marco opened the door, his expression shifted from surprise to guarded suspicion. "Laura," he said, barely masking his discomfort. "What brings you here?" "Can we talk? It's important," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside her. He hesitated, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting someone to appear. Finally, he stepped aside, allowing her to enter. The air was thick with tension, and Laura could sense his unease. She had spent years trying to piece together the puzzle of her uncle's disappearance, and now, here was a crucial piece standing right in front of her. "Listen, I know about the messages," Laura began, her voice firm. "I know you've been hiding things. I need to understand what happened that day. What do you know about Uncle Sam?" Marco's eyes darted around the room, and for a moment, Laura thought he might evade her questions. But then the facade cracked. He sighed deeply, his shoulders slumping. "It's not that simple, Laura. Try me," she urged, the desperation in her voice unmistakable. "I deserve to know. He ran a hand through his hair, clearly conflicted. Your uncle was involved in something dangerous. He didn't tell you everything. I didn't want to believe it myself, but he was mixed up with people who didn't play by the rules. Laura's heart sank. What do you mean? Was he in trouble? Marco took a moment, his expression haunted. He was trying to help someone. He thought he could make a difference, but he got too deep. I warned him to stay away, but he didn't listen. Help who? Laura pressed, her mind racing with possibilities. What were you afraid of? People who would do anything to protect their interests, Marco said, his voice trembling. I never wanted to get involved, but when I saw the trouble he was in, I wish I had done more. The more he spoke, the more tangled the web seemed. Laura could feel the pieces slipping through her fingers, just out of reach. You said he was helping someone. Who? What does it have to do with his disappearance? I can't say much more, Marco replied, panic rising in his voice. But if you continue digging, you're going to put yourself in danger. You have to let this go. Laura shook her head vehemently. No, I won't stop until I know what happened to him. If you know something, anything, please, tell me. Just then, the sound of a car engine roared outside, causing both of them to freeze. Marco's face drained of color, and his eyes widened in fear. They're here, he whispered. Who's here? Laura asked, feeling a surge of dread. Before Marco could respond, the front door burst open, and two men stepped inside, their presence immediately oppressive. Laura's instincts screamed for her to flee, but curiosity rooted her to the spot. The men's cold expressions left no doubt. They were not there for casual conversation. Marco's demeanor shifted entirely, revealing a side Laura had never seen. I told you to stay away from this, he shouted, panic lacing his voice. One of the men stepped forward, his gaze fixed on Laura. You should have listened to him, girl. You're in way over your head. The tension in the room escalated, and Laura's heart raced as she realized the confrontation she had feared was no longer a looming shadow. It was here, now, and the truth she sought was within grasp, yet perilously out of reach. She braced herself, knowing that this dark revelation could lead to answers, but at what cost? In that moment, she understood the stakes had just risen significantly, and the danger was now not just about uncovering her uncle's past, but about surviving her quest for the truth. Laura's mind raced as she processed the threat that hung heavily in the air. The men exchanged glances, their silent communication thick with menace. She could feel the weight of their intentions bearing down on her, a chilling reminder of the secrets that lay buried in her uncle's life. Why are you here? Laura demanded, her voice trembling, but she forced herself to stand tall. What do you know about my uncle and Marco? The man who had spoken earlier took a step closer, his expression unyielding. You've stirred up a lot of things that were meant to stay buried, girl. You think you're ready for what you might find? Marco shifted uncomfortably, his anxiety palpable. You need to go, Laura. Now. But she couldn't leave. Not now. Not when she was so close to understanding the truth about her uncle's disappearance. The clue found hidden in the truck seat had led her to this moment, and she could feel the strings of fate pulling her deeper into a web of darkness. You don't understand, she pressed, desperation lacing her words. I need to know what happened to him. He was my family. The men remained silent, their stony faces betraying nothing. In that moment, Laura realized that they were not just any men. They were connected to the very secrets she sought to unravel. She needed to turn this fear into resolve. Gathering her courage, she continued, I have a lead, something that could change everything. I can't let it go, not when it might bring justice for my uncle and Marco. At that, the men exchanged another glance, a flicker of uncertainty crossing their features. For a brief moment, Laura saw an opening, a crack in their intimidating facade. You don't want to dig too deep, the man warned, his tone shifting from aggressive to almost pleading. You think you can handle the truth? Sometimes it's better left unknown. But Laura felt a surge of determination rise within her. She would not be intimidated. I have to know. What's the worst you can throw at me? The man's smile was devoid of warmth. You have no idea what you're asking for. With that, he stepped back, signaling for the other man to follow. As they turned to leave, Laura's heart raced. She had crossed a line. There was no going back. Yet the tension lingered, thick in the room. After they departed, Marco's relief was evident, but it was short-lived. "They're not going to let this go," he warned, his voice low. "You've put a target on your back." "I'm not scared," Laura replied firmly, "but I can't do this alone. I need your help." Marco hesitated, wrestling with the fear that coursed through him. "What if they come back? What if they try to silence you for good?" "I have to take that risk," Laura insisted. "We're so close to uncovering the truth." The conversation lingered, heavy with unspoken fears. But with each moment, Laura felt the urgency of her mission solidifying her resolve. She needed to follow the trail, no matter how dangerous it became. The next day, fueled by her determination and the threat still echoing in her mind, Laura began to dig deeper into the clues surrounding her uncle's last known movements. She reached out to contacts who knew him, piecing together a timeline that led to an unsettling realization. The truck was not just a vehicle, it was a linchpin in a larger operation, one that stretched beyond her uncle's disappearance. As she delved into the murky waters of her uncle's past, she discovered a series of coded messages he had sent to a mysterious figure, a name that rang alarm bells: Victor Castillo. The deeper she dug, the more intricate the web of lies became, revealing a hidden life filled with clandestine dealings and a dangerous connection to organized crime. Laura's heart raced as she realized she was on the brink of uncovering something monumental, a truth so dark it threatened to change everything she thought she knew about her family. But as she closed in on Victor Castillo, the shadows grew longer and the threats loomed larger. With each new piece of information, she felt the weight of the danger pressing closer. The walls were closing in, and she knew that the confrontation she had feared was inevitable. Laura steeled herself, preparing for the moment when she would have to face the very secrets that had taken her uncle and Marco away from her. Time was running out. With each passing day, Laura felt the pressure mounting. The trail to Victor Castillo was growing warmer, yet the danger surrounding her became more palpable. She knew she needed to tread carefully. As she continued her investigation, she reached out to contacts who might know Castillo's whereabouts, desperate to connect the dots without drawing too much attention to herself. Her inquiries led her to a small, dimly lit bar on the outskirts of town, a known haunt for those involved in the underbelly of organized crime. It was a place where whispers could ignite flames, and where the truth was often buried beneath layers of deception. Laura walked in with a mix of trepidation and determination, her heart racing as she scanned the room for anyone who might help her piece together the final puzzle. Amidst the clinking glasses and hushed conversations, she spotted a figure sitting alone at the far end of the bar. An older man with a hardened face, his eyes flickering with a mixture of wariness and recognition. She approached him cautiously, introducing herself and hinting at her search for Victor Castillo. The man's expression shifted, a flicker of fear passing over his features. "You shouldn't be asking about him," he warned, his voice barely above a whisper. "He's not someone you want to cross." But Laura pressed on, driven by the hope of uncovering the truth. The man hesitated, clearly torn between his instinct to protect her and the knowledge he held. Finally, he relented, his voice trembling as he spoke. "Victor's involved in something much bigger than you can imagine. Your uncle, he got too close, that's why he disappeared." As Laura listened, dread coiled in her stomach. She learned that Victor Castillo was not just a name, but a key player in a network of smuggling and trafficking that spanned across borders. The connection to her uncle was now more sinister than she had ever anticipated. The realization hit her like a jolt. Her uncle had become entangled in a dark world, one that had cost him his life. But why had Marco been involved? Questions swirled in her mind like a storm. The man's words echoed in her ears. "You're playing a dangerous game and the stakes are higher than you know." Determined, Laura knew she had to confront Victor Castillo himself. There was no turning back now. She reached out to her contacts again, hoping to track him down. Days turned into a blur of anxious waiting, each moment stretching her nerves thin as she prepared for what would come next. Then, a breakthrough. A tip-off led her to a warehouse on the edge of town. a location rumored to be a hub for Castillo's operations. She steeled herself, clutching the details tightly as she pulled into the lot, the shadows of the building looming large against the setting sun. Laura's heart raced as she stepped out of her car, adrenaline surging through her veins. She had come too far to back down now. But as she approached the entrance, an unsettling feeling washed over her. She was aware that she was stepping into a world fraught with peril, a confrontation with the very man whose secrets had shattered her family. In that moment, she realized the truth was within her grasp, yet it came with a price. Laura took a deep breath, readying herself for what lay ahead, knowing that the revelations about her uncle and Marco were about to unfold in ways she could never have imagined. The time for answers was drawing near, but so too was the reckoning. As Laura entered the warehouse, she was met with a scene she had never anticipated. The shadows coalesced into figures, men she had only heard of in whispered conversations. Among them stood Marco, his demeanor unrecognizable, shrouded in arrogance and disdain. With a steady voice, Laura confronted him, demanding the truth about her uncle's disappearance. The tension hung thick in the air as she recounted the years of pain, the silence that had haunted her family, and the hope that had never truly faded. Marco's expression shifted as he realized the gravity of her resolve. He could no longer hide behind the shadows of deceit. It was then that the pieces began to fall into place. Marco confessed, revealing a web of betrayal that spanned far beyond her uncle's fate. Her uncle had discovered illegal activities tied to Marco and his associates, a criminal enterprise that threatened to unravel everything. In a desperate attempt to silence him, they had orchestrated a plan that led to his disappearance, a plan she had unwittingly stumbled upon in her quest for truth. As law enforcement arrived, tipped off by Laura's persistence, the atmosphere shifted from one of fear to a confrontation of justice. Marco and his accomplices were taken into custody, their empire of lies dismantled, piece by painful piece. In the days that followed, Laura experienced a whirlwind of emotions. The relief of knowing what had happened to her uncle was tempered by the heavy sorrow of his loss. She had fought against the odds, against the skepticism of those who dismissed her concerns, and ultimately triumphed over darkness. The case had been resolved, but the scars it left behind would remain. Justice had been served, yet it came at the cost of a family fractured by loss and betrayal. Laura's journey was a testament to the power of determination and the unyielding search for truth, even when the path was fraught with danger. In the end, Laura realized that the fight for justice is not just about the answers. It's also about honoring those we love and carrying their stories forward. She found strength in the memory of her uncle, whose voice had finally been heard. As the dust settled on the case, Laura reflected on the profound lessons learned. That truth can be elusive, that loss is a heavy burden, but that hope, when nurtured, can lead to the light of justice. What stories lie hidden in the shadows of our lives, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover them?